Uh, so I figured today I wanted to talk about why does life feel so hard right now? And I think we can all kind of relate to this in this generation of people. I think this world that we've been raised in, life feels pretty hard right now. Unironically, we've grown up in a generation disconnected from each other. Every year that uh, I think a new generation comes around, the further and further apart we get. Uh, I heard it said once from a person. Uh, they said more and more every year we become a society of strangers rather than a society of peers. And I think that we can all really relate to that. Sometimes it's easy to feel really alone, especially right now in the world. The world is in a spot where uh, not being settled down with a particular person is praised, and party culture and stuff like that is, the goal for everyone in their life. And I've kind of realized as a person myself, I've made observation to how people can be really lonely. The loneliness epidemic is a really big problem. For those of you guys that don't know this, the loneliness epidemic is a statistic showing that Gen Z, our generation, is one of the loneliest ones uh, alive, because every year um, the idea of like this connection is severed and severed more and more over time, and it's just not a healthy thing that uh, people are selling their lives to. Right now, the world is promoting, party culture and freedom of sexuality and partners. No need for ties to hold you down because that's controlling, or these things that are, this idea of micro cheating that people have now. It's very difficult to live in a world like that where everyone is telling you that your opinions don't matter that much. And I just feel like that is something that is a problem, going on in the world. I feel like currently we all harbor a lot of hate for one another. You know, I don't think love exists as it did a couple of years ago. I feel like love is a concept now that is, optional. You don't have to tie yourself down to a relationship or whatnot. You don't need a boyfriend or a husband or a wife controlling your life and telling you what to do. This may not apply to everyone. There's people out there in the world that are always finding love and they're thriving, but I feel like as a generation, we've kind of grown apart from one another. It seems like something that has shifted in the world around me, around us. Just something that I've noticed. I find myself, last year in my life, it was a rough period of time. My junior year of high school, it's not the easiest time for anybody, so to say, but for me, I did particularly struggle with it. I've got really bad skin in terms of like genetics, so like acne and stuff comes really bad to me. Uh, there's times where I've grown huge uh, pus pockets, like in the, I guess like eye well, like the area around your eye, like your eyelid, like towards your eyebrow. I've grown like huge bubbles, and I there was a point where like they'd swell up and they'd get so huge that I couldn't open my eye, and it was a real struggle for me. I couldn't. It also, it doesn't help every day you're walking into school and all these kids around you, especially fellow men, uh, and they've got these clean faces. They don't have pimples like me. They don't have acne like me. They can grow facial hair and I can't. And it was hard to live like that, and so um, I went to the dermatologist, and I had done all kinds of stuff, and I had gone through skincare routines and face topicals and face washes, gels, whatever, the whole 9 yards of trying to get rid of this facial acne, and it just would not leave. And so, um, my dermatologist, she sat me and my mom and my dad down, and she said, "Uh, what we're doing is not helping you. And if you want my honest opinion to see the best results, you're going to have to start Accutane." And Accutane is a medicine that essentially dries out like all of your skin, and it just makes you, it turns you just really dry. So this, uh, all the oils in your face like deplete, and you can't grow these cysts on your face, and I was willing to do it. I was willing to do whatever it took to get rid of these awful, awful things on my face. I hated them. I hated the way I looked. I hated how I felt every day. And so I was willing. I wanted to do this. And so I willingly said that I would take Accutane, and I did. I completed it after a year. It's not easy uh, doing Accutane. It's not a field day. But the point I'm getting to is Accutane is a depressant. Uh, Essentially, Accutane affects with your brain chemistry to an extent where you can't. Uh, it makes you sad essentially all the time, and it was really hard um, for the mindset I was already in. Hating the way I looked, and then taking this medicine that was promised to uh, help me look better, and all I did was feel worse about myself. And so that's a really hard thing. And I tried to find um, I tried to find purpose in a girl. She wasn't good at all for me. She was a bad influence. She was not a good person. Um, and on top of that, she uh, did not like me at all. Uh, she thought I was weird, awkward. She just said that she would rather not talk to me. And it was a really hard time because obviously, teenage boy getting rejected by a girl saying that she would rather never be around you than talk to you. It's pretty devastating blow to hear. I feel like for anybody as a person, you know, and especially I was just kind of distraught at the fact that, you know, I this girl was, whoa, this girl hated me. I had never heard anyone like use the word like hate in such a literal sense of like, I don't like you as a person. And to me, that's really hard to hear. You never want to hear that as a person. I hate you. It's a strong verbiage of words that I don't think anyone in their life deserves to hear. And so that was, it was really hard going through that. But then I made it through, and I made it through Accutane, and uh, now I am happy as can be. Well, you know, as dramatic of a statement that is, you can be happy as can be. I would say that I was, um, but life always has a way to seemingly keep you down, and that's why I felt like making this video is loneliness, loneliness is really real. I feel it every day. I have plenty of friends. I have great friends. I love my friends. They're awesome people. They make me strive to be a better person. But you know, at the center of my being, there's this purpose. I want to be, loved. I want to be wanted, felt. You know, I want a girl to come up to me and tell me, you're handsome. Uh, but unfortunately, that's a pretty far-fetched thing, especially in this society. And I just kind of wanted to make people feel like, maybe we aren't alone. We have each other. We don't have to be alone from one another, even though it might feel like it. But, we always have somebody in our corner fighting for us. But I think as a people, we can do better. You know, I think we can always do better. And I hope this speaks to somebody. Maybe you'll understand it, maybe you won't, but I hope we can do better as people. I think like that would be a pretty dang good goal. But hey, I got the base work of a house set up. It's not the prettiest. I'm no master builder, but hey, I think it looks pretty dang good. But yeah, thanks for, giving me the time of day again, if you did. I hope you guys appreciate this.